Okay friends, one of the first things we have to do is safely raise and support the rear of the vehicle so the wheel's off the ground. After that, if you have a center cover or hubcap, go ahead and remove that. Remove your 21mm lug nuts and then the wheel. Now that we have that out of the way, we have a nice clear view of our brake drum right here. Now we need to remove this from this area, so we want to be very careful doing this. Ours is rusted on there. I'm just going to give it a loving bonk with the hammer to try to break it free. I'm just going to put one of these lug nuts on here just to protect me. Remove your drum. The next thing I always like to do is remove the brake dust from this area. Let's just go ahead and use some parts cleaner with a nice collection receptacle under there. Just be careful because you don't want it blowing back at your face. With everything nice and clean, now we can start working on this. Inside along this area here, you're going to find several springs. Just take a quick note of the direction of the springs and how everything's situated. Now at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and grab onto this spring right here. Being careful not to cut it, I'll go ahead and remove it. Inspect each of the springs as you go if you're not replacing them. We'll set this aside. Go ahead and grab onto the adjuster. Pull that out as well. Now we can start getting the adjuster out of here. To do that, I'm just going to go ahead and press on this shoe right here. Grab onto this. Slide it out of position. Now you want to inspect this. Make sure that it's not frozen in any way. We're going to go ahead and clean this up a little later. Next, we're going to come down to this anchor pin right here. This has a pin that comes through the backing plate from the rear out towards you. You can see it right there. On the outer portion right here, there's a clip. You can see that it kind of has a little cross on it. So what we want to do is just take a tool that looks like this. Or you can, of course, use some long nose pliers, grab right onto it. But essentially, we're just going to go ahead and grab onto it. We're going to give it a little twist. And then we're going to try to line up the tab with the corresponding hole in the clip. There we are. Just pull that out of there. Now we can grab onto this shoe. Just go ahead and pull it out and around there. We can take off this spring. Come down here. Pop that off as well. Fully remove your springs. Remove this one as well. Let's go ahead and grab onto this shoe. Now you're going to see that it's still attached to the e-brake mechanism here. Go ahead and turn it around and you're going to find a little U-clip. Now for this clip, what you want to do is just go ahead and spread those two ears far enough that you can slide it right off of this pin and then remove this from the shoe. Sometimes to spread these ears, it's going to be easiest with some pliers. You would just essentially get along the back of these two ears right here and press on that tab as well. We'll just squeeze. There we are. Now let's move along to confirming that our wheel cylinder is good. For these, generally you can just go ahead and squeeze them a little bit, or just try to push from one side to the other. Just be careful not to push it all the way out of one side. If you see any fluid coming out, you're going to need to replace that wheel cylinder. After you know that's good, let's continue on with a nice brush. Clean up the area. The next thing we're going to do is take some high temperature grease, and I always like to put a little bit along each of the tabs on my wheel cylinder. And then along each of the knurls on the backing plate here. Pretty much any place that that brake shoe is going to be sitting against, you want to make sure that you have some sort of lubricant. And we'll also get along the back side of this. Now we can start installing our brake shoes. We want to look at this area up here. You can see that on either side, they're a little bit different. We want to use the one that has the smaller nub along the back side of it right here. You can see this one's a little larger. The reason why that is because we're going to go ahead and take this. We'll slide it right into position. Obviously, the larger nub would not fit through there. Then we're just going to take our little C-clamp here, or U-clamp, whatever you want to call it. Slide it right over that. Use some pliers to slide it into position. And then you just want to make sure that you pinch it shut so it can't fall apart. Give that a little wiggle. Perfect. Now let's grab some of our mounting hardware here. We have our pin, our spring, and our cap. Take the pin, come through the back of the backing plate here, and put it right on through. Bring that shoe up and into position, and we're going to put that pin through the hole in the shoe where it corresponds with. I always like to have my pin so it's facing straight up and down like this. Now we'll take our spring, we can rest it right on that pin. Take your cap, we're going to line it up in the same direction as the pin, so I had my pin facing up and down. That's the way I'm going to have my slot. Now to show you what I'll do, I'll just go ahead and use some of these needle nose pliers or long nose pliers. We're going to line that pin up with the slot, push it through, twist it so it's 90 degrees and it's completely locked in. Give it a little wiggle, make sure it's secure. Put your shoe into position. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and clean up our adjuster here. For this, it comes apart. You can go ahead and pull that cap right off. We want to make sure that we clean up this entire area. And then, of course, completely unscrew this. And we're going to clean up the threading area on this. After that, we'll lubricate everything and start putting it back together. Now that we've got everything cleaned up, let's take some more of that high temperature grease. I'm going to come right along this threaded area here. This is going to help keep moisture out of the area and prevent it from seizing up on you. Now we can just go ahead and screw this right in. We'll bottom it out. Okay. Take some more of that grease. We're going to put it right up along this area here. It's super important to make sure that you grease this. Put that cap on there. And now we can set this aside. Now we can take our other shoe with our lower spring. We'll go ahead and start putting this in. Bring this up around this area, and then bring it up towards where it's going to line up with the wheel cylinder up there. Now we're going to go ahead and put this spring in right here. You want to have it facing in this direction. Now when we do this, we're going to take one side and we're going to go all the way inside that portion there to that. There we are. Just going to pull this, get it into that hole. Now we can take our anchor pin, our spring, and our cap. We'll get everything lined up and install this one as well. Double check to make sure that your pin's sitting perfectly. Now we can install our adjuster. You can see that you have the larger slot right along the back side of this. That's going to fit right into this area right here. You want to have the smaller slot facing out and away. Get that right into position. We'll bring this up into close to position as well. Now we can just go ahead and pull our shoes in. If it feels as though there's too much slack in this area, go ahead and adjust this so it takes up that slack for you. You don't want this falling out. Now we can take our adjuster, go ahead and slide it right up along this area here and inside this area right there. Once you have that on there, continue on with this spring. I always like to press up against the shoe right here while I'm doing this. That's going to help prevent this from pushing out the wheel cylinder on us and damaging it. Alright, so at this point we have all of our springs back on here. You can tell that the shoes are sitting perfectly. Just go ahead and inspect everything. Make sure that the springs are sitting in where they need to be. You've got this one down here. The shoes are definitely sitting into the grooves where they need to be, and of course into the wheel cylinder. That looks pretty great. So at this point we can move along to cleaning up the mating surface of our hub. On your original brake drum, you're going to find a rubber plug right here. Go ahead and pop that right out. And this would be the location for the adjustment port. So you can just go ahead and take your screwdriver, put it in there. We're going to take that rubber and we're going to put it into the brand new drum after we complete making our adjustments. Now it's time to clean up the braking surface on our brand new drum. Let's apply some copper never seize. I just wanted to show you real quick, when it comes time to adjusting this, if you were to over adjust it by continuously doing this to the point that the drum did not want to spin, you're going to have a pick that looks just like this. You're going to come in through your adjustment hole on the drum, scoop in, and you're going to have to grab onto this right here. When you do that, it comes apart right there, separates that area I should say, and then you'll be able to de-adjust this by lifting up on your screwdriver and turning that cog. Now we can get our drum on here. The next thing that we're going to do is make our adjustment for the brake shoes. To do that, I always take a couple of my lug nuts. I'm going to put them on the lug studs across from each other. We'll bottom them out. That's going to press the drum directly up against the hub so we can make our adjustment. Now at this point, we're going to want to make our adjustment. And when we do this, we want to make sure that the drum can still spin. That's going to be very important. What you want to be listening for while you're doing this is just a light skimming of the shoes hitting up against the braking surface inside the drum. Now you can hear it's lightly skimming right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and just adjust it up a little bit more. Now if I try to turn this, you can tell it does not want to spin at all. If you were to leave it like this, you're going to overheat your brakes, you're going to find a pulsation, and it could potentially be unsafe overall. So at this point, I need to realign this, and then I'll just de-adjust it a tiny bit. Perfect. Put on your protective boot, remove your lug nuts. Let's go ahead and get our wheel on here. We'll snug up all of our lug nuts. Now we can get the wheel back on the ground and we'll torque the lug nuts to 80 foot-pounds. If you have a hubcap, go ahead and put that on. You want to make sure you line up your valve stem hole with the valve stem on your wheel.